Bom dia, tudo bem? Eu vou começar a falar em português. Mal português. Mas para este vídeo eu vou falar sobre como eu aprendo português. Eu não tenho notas, não tenho nada, não tenho tradutora, e eu vou falar só português. Eu vou só falar. Quando uma pessoa fala comigo sobre básico conversação, eu compreendo sobre comida, sobre hoje, sobre tempo, sobre básico conversação. Mas se uma pessoa fala comigo sobre político, sobre tópico advanced, eu não compreendo muito. Agora, quando eu vou às compras, eu sei palavras para esta. Quando eu vou ao restaurante, eu compreendo tudo, porque eu gosto de comer comida, see? But anyway, so in this video, I wanted to go over how I'm learning Portuguese badly, but how I'm learning Portuguese and how I function day to day with my Portuguese. So prior to moving to Portugal, I did learn French previously. Now, would I say I'm fluent in French? No, not at all. Nowhere close to being fluent in French. I studied French when I was in middle school, or actually right before middle school. I learned French then, and then I continued my learning of French up until college years. And then in my 20s, I really didn't know, or I forgot a lot of the French, really. Then I met my husband, and we did travel to France every other year or whatnot. And so I was able to use it more and more. But I would say that my French is pretty basic. I mean, it's more than basic. I can have a conversation with my in-laws because they only speak French. However, it's very short, it's a very basic conversation. So I do have experience with the Latin language. I actually grew up speaking Vietnamese up until probably my elementary school years. So that was actually my first language. But after going into school, I totally forgot all of my Vietnamese. I understand a handful of it, but way more than what I speak. So in other words, I can understand way more than I'm able to speak. And I think that goes to say with a lot of people who learn a language. You're going to initially understand what people say before you're able to actually speak. That's not to say everyone's like that, but from what I've gathered online and talking to other people, usually you tend to understand more initially, and then you kind of gain the confidence to be able to speak. And that was in my situation for sure. So before going to Portugal, I did want to learn the language. So I would say maybe 6 months before moving to Portugal, I reached out to a really popular online, well, they do it mostly in person, but during that time it was COVID. So they offered an online resource to learn Portuguese with a tutor of theirs. And so this school was actually, or is actually located in Ericeira, and I think that they have one in Lisbon. So I liked what I read from their site, and when I talked to the owner, it seemed like she was really great and all that stuff. However, my experience was not the best, I would say, only because they had quite a bit of a turnover. I think we had 3 or 4 teachers during one course, and this is all online, right? It was one-on-one, actually, it was one-on-one with me and my husband with the tutor. And I didn't learn anything just because every single time I feel like I was making some sort of progress, that teacher quit, and then we had to get a new one, and then they didn't know where we left off. So it was kind of like then going over the basics again. So it never progressed. And unfortunately, that school, there was no option to end it and receive a partial refund. It was just kind of like, oh, well, sorry, that's just life. So anyway, I wouldn't recommend that school, in other words. So I really didn't learn Portuguese until I contacted a school here in Caldish. They did have online courses, so I did actually start with them, I want to say June. So pretty much the month that we were about to move. I had private courses with them online, and I would say that I really enjoyed their private courses a lot. And I'll actually link their information below. Now, with that being said, when I came to college, I wanted to do in-person courses with them. And I did my basics, so like A1 level, how the levels are when you learn a language. So there's A1, which is pretty much beginner basic, like teaching you the greetings, times the day, numbers, colors, like that stuff that you learn pretty much when you're like 2-3 years old. And you know how you're like, oh, this shape is this, or this color is this. You're gonna learn that in the basics in A1 level. Then you have an A2 level, which is now more like advanced beginners. So you're gonna learn more in-depth conversation, more words, how to conjugate verbs, all that stuff, your prepositions, all that. And then you go into, B1, which is, obviously more advanced, then B2, then C1 and C2. And to me, C1, C2 is more of like university level, where you're going to go more in depth with certain topics. So I was, I had completed my A1 level with them, and I was getting into my A2, and at that school they have A2.1 and A2.2. So they separate A2 into 2 separate courses, mainly because it's just a lot of material. Since I had private courses, I had it twice a week, and each class was 90 minutes. So you are learning about 3 hours a week. And I will say it was good because I personally prefer private courses versus group classes, just because I like that individualized attention. I like to be able to ask questions freely, because unfortunately in a class, sometimes you may have 10 other students with you, and if they all have questions, sometimes it takes a while for the teacher to teach whatever they have questions or answer their questions, and then you'll find that you don't have much time left over. And for me, I'm honestly more of a shy person too, so if I have questions, I may just try to Google it later versus asking the teacher. With that being said, in the courses, my teacher was great. I loved her, and we would obviously talk about everything and anything, which was nice. And in the course, it's very, or at least the class that I took, it was great because it was very organized. They help you with your reading, your writing, your listening, oral, all that stuff. But the only thing that I had issues with was, and this is why I stopped those courses, it's because one, it does move quickly. You're learning everything, and even though you may understand it at that time, unless you actually go home and do your homework and like really narrow it down and really, study hard, you're going to forget it by the next, class, because now you're going into different topics or it's hard. Especially with me having 3 kids, the last thing I want to do is like do my day-to-day with the kids and then go home and then now have to when the kids are going to bed, have to then study Portuguese and then go to bed. I mean, for me, it was just unrealistic, just because when the kids are going to bed, I only have a couple of hours to decompress, watch whatever show I want to watch after I finish cleaning up, all that stuff. So I'm just a really bad student, and actually, eu sou preguiçosa, yeah, which is I'm lazy, which is so true. I am. I could very well devote half an hour of my day or an hour of my day to really study Portuguese, but I'm just gonna be realistic. I am lazy. There are just a lot of other things that I really want to focus on than have to memorize Portuguese words that I may or may not use. So with that being said, how am I learning Portuguese now? Because I've stopped taking courses. I think my last class was early December, or maybe the end of November. So it was quite a while, because now it's March. So it's been 3 months since I've really had a class or anything like that. So how am I learning Portuguese now? Or how would I recommend that you learn Portuguese too? Honestly, I would do this. And if you're a class person, great. I would enroll in class and enjoy it, because you do learn quite a bit, probably more than I might have learned otherwise. But unfortunately, most of the things I learned, I kind of forgot. And that's why I've now taken a different approach to learning Portuguese. One, I only study what I'm going to use on a daily basis. And this is something I would recommend to you. Learn your vocabulary with things that you need. For instance, we all need to go grocery shopping. So you really should focus on learning verbs and words that you use grocery shopping. So like, where can I find this? Or if you're at the butcher, because unless you're a vegetarian, you're always going to need something in the meat section or the seafood section or the takeaway section, whatever. You're going to need to know the basic words like, can I have a kilo of beef, right? Or a kilo of chicken? Can I have that chicken sliced? Certain things like those type of words that you're going to maybe use. Where can I find XYZ, whatever product you're looking for? At the cashier, they're going to ask you certain questions like, I don't know, do you have a NIF? Do you need a bag? Those type of things. So these are the type of things that I would say you definitely need to focus on. Same thing with the restaurants. If you go out to eat, you're going to want to know how to order food. You're going to want to know how to ask for the check. Those type of things you're going to need. Same thing with, let's say, at the gas station. So I would focus really on everyday life, everyday function, because sure, the course is great. They're going to teach you about, I don't know, like history, or they're going to teach you about, I don't even know, like the temperature outside, or they're going to teach you about like things in the house. Sure. These are things that you definitely need to know. Sure. Are you going to need to know it right off the bat? Probably not. So I wouldn't really focus on knowing what a sofa is in Portuguese yet, because you're probably not going to use the word sofa unless you go buy furniture, which in that case, that's your next step to learn those words. I'm going to go buy furniture, so I need to know what furniture is called, right? So I would really focus on useful words that you're going to use on a daily basis. That's the first step. The second step that I have found to be super helpful is hiring people that only speak Portuguese. So I know as an expat or a foreigner, whatever you want to call it, you're going to want to initially, especially online, ask groups like, oh, can you recommend an English-speaking person to clean my house, for instance? Which, sure, I understand. I feel you. There are times where I'm like, oh man, if only this person spoke English, it would be so much easier. But I wanted to force myself to speak Portuguese. So I only found, like, I have a housekeeper, thankfully, because I would not be able to clean my house by myself. But I only sought a Portuguese housekeeper who only spoke Portuguese, because I know myself. If I know that person speaks English, you best believe I'm gonna be like, follow English, because it's gonna be so much easier for me. But I don't want to make it easier. I want to speak Portuguese as badly as I can, but to get my point across for the person to understand me. And so I have a person that only speaks Portuguese clean my house. She understands me, I understand her. She uses terminology with me that I don't know. Now I know those words, or now I know limpeza is to clean. Like, I now learn these words that, sure, I probably did learn in my courses before, but now it's actually being used day to day. And now I know them. And would I have remembered that word if I had an English speaker? Probably not, because I would just be like, hey, can you clean X, Y, and Z, right? And then I would never be forced to learn Portuguese. Another thing that I did was I looked up what the most common verbs used in the Portuguese language. And from there, I took the top 5, like estar, ser, ter, poder, stuff like that I know I'm gonna use, and I conjugated it. I not only conjugate it in the present tense, but I try to conjugate it in the past tense. So there's 2 different past tense, is a PPS, perfeito, perfect simplish, and then the imperfecto. So in the past, it's like PPS would be something that's already been done, like I went to the store. That'd be PPS. And then imperfecto is kind of like telling a story. It's kind of like I was at the store, or I was walking somewhere when X, Y, and Z happened, or whatever. So I conjugated those verbs into those 3 tenses, and then also looked at the future tense, which the near future is actually really easy to learn. It's kind of like I am going to wherever, or I you just use the verb ir. But I'm not going to teach you Portuguese because I'm still learning Portuguese, so you can look that up. But anyway, I just conjugate those verbs into those 4 tenses so that I can memorize it and be able to use it when I need to. And honestly, I find the trickiest thing for me, and luckily my Portuguese teacher told me it was an issue for her too with English, is those darn little prepositions. Those little words like of, on, in, those little tiny words that everyone always forgets, and when you're reading, you kind of just like glide right through it and you forget. I have problems with those. So I'm trying to make flashcards, but I'm not a flashcard person, right? I need to just remember it, memorize it, and then hopefully in the next year be able to have it down packed, because it's annoying to me because I know I'm missing those prepositions, but I'm not worrying so much about it because the big thing is if people can understand what verb you're using and what you want or what you're trying to get across, that's all they care about. They don't care if it's perfect because, newsflash, you're not Portuguese. So I'm not Portuguese. So I'm pretty sure they know I'm not Portuguese. So if they can understand what I'm trying to get through, I feel like I'm winning. So if I'm like, I need a sock, right? Or I need sock. So I forget the preposition of A, right? I need sock. I think that they would understand me, even if I didn't throw a preposition in there. So I'm not too worried about the prepositions yet. I'm just more worried about learning more and more words so I can build my sentences more. So that's what I would recommend. I would recommend maybe getting 10 of the most common verbs that you use, and you can kind of already know when you are talking, you kind of have an idea of what verbs you already use in your native language, and then just convert that to Portuguese. So if you use to can or be able to, you just know that poder in Portuguese is the same meaning, right? So you just need to know this. And then number 3, so I'm trying, but I haven't yet. But I'm going to tell you to do this, so hopefully you're going to be better than me, is watching Portuguese shows and movies and all that good stuff. There is an app called RTP Play, which is great because it takes Portuguese shows and then has subtitles on the bottom of it. And it's an app that you can download on your phone or on your tablet or your computer. And it's great because now you can actually read it as well as listen to it, and it builds your reading and listening comprehension. Disney actually is great because they not only have Brazilian Portuguese, but they have European Portuguese too with a lot of their shows and movies. So that's great because with Netflix, you just don't know unless it says, most of the time it'll say Portuguese, but most of the time it's also Brazilian Portuguese. So unless you can find those rare few shows that are European Portuguese, you are going to start listening and learning Brazilian Portuguese. So you just want to be careful with those two because even though they're similar, there's a lot of words that are different, and I believe some grammar is also different too. So I would just recommend that if you can. Lastly, one thing that I have really, really enjoyed is honestly this YouTube channel. I love her. Her channel is Portuguese Lab, and I swear she breaks everything down so simply. Like, sure, people will recommend memories, people will recommend practice Portuguese. They're all great. I've used them, they're great. I am just more of a visual and audio learner, and I like to see YouTube channels. I learn a lot off of YouTube actually. So to see her break down everything you need into different videos, I found hers to be probably the most useful for me. You may not like her, and that's cool. There's other options that you can use. But that's how I'm learning Portuguese, because she breaks down how to pronounce certain words, certain sentence structures, and then she'll go into like reading aspects and writing. So I quite enjoy learning Portuguese through her channel. One other thing that I have found to be super helpful, which I was really good for like a good solid month and then I kind of dropped it and now I need to go back, is learning with this app called Link. It's not free, it's a paid app, and I'm not getting sponsored, but I love it because it's so good. Okay, I'm going to try to explain to you. It is an app that helps with your reading, pronunciation, and listening skills. So for instance, If you open the app, you can go through their basic courses where they'll read they'll read like stories to you. And then if you don't know a word, you click on it and it'll tell you what the meaning is. And then it'll save that word into your list of words that you don't know. And they'll actually highlight it as each subject goes on and on. You'll see the highlighted word that you don't know. So you'll always keep seeing that word. And once you see it a few times, you actually start to memorize and know that's the word for X, Y, and Z. I love that. And actually, if you are a polyglot, or if you are familiar with polyglots, or who are people who learn multiple languages, most of them will say that they actually learn through reading initially, because they'll get an idea of the word after they see it so many times, and then they'll memorize that word. And then as your reading progresses, now you've built up so many more vocabulary words than just listening and speaking. So I found that to be super effective for me, because if I see that word a million times, now I know what that word is. And when you're reading, let's just say even a simple piece of paper, right? Like, I don't know, let's just say you get a grocery catalog or something and you're going through it. Do you know how many words are in just a basic catalog? There's so many words. You'll easily find like 1,000 words in a catalog. So if you know what 1,000 words are, you just build your vocabulary by 1,000 words, and that's crazy. So it's something that I would recommend you look into by reading Link, or using Link. I really enjoy it. And lastly, on top of that, I do go out to like Pingo Dos or Continent has them, and they have children's books, which I really enjoy. It's actually so organized. They have they're like short stories, and they have for babies and toddlers and then older ages. And they number it 1 through 30 or whatever, however many books there are. And the books are great because they teach you past, present, future tenses all in the story. And then they're short. They're probably like maybe 5-10 pages long. So you get to learn so many different vocabulary words just from those books. And you get to read it and try to enunciate all the words, and it helps with your speaking. And those words I don't understand or don't know how to pronounce, I'll put into my Deeple app and listen to them say the word over and over, and then I will then repeat it so that I understand what the word is. It doesn't mean that I have now memorized and am going to be fluent knowing that word. It's going to take me quite a long time for me to actually be able to understand and remember that word. So that's something that I would highly recommend, just reading more. It really, really does help, and it definitely will help your reading comprehension by far. Because I find that my reading comprehension is better than my listening for sure, and speaking. So anywho, I know I just went on and I don't want to make this video super long, but I hope that these tips and tricks really helped you. I hope you guys are more motivated to learn Portuguese. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you the next time. Bye.